What if everything you believe to be real is not as solid as it seems? Jacobo Grinberg Zilberbaum, a neuroscientist from Mexico, dared to look beyond the limits of science. But then, on December 8, 1994, he vanished. There was no note, no sign of struggle, no ransom demand. It was as if he had been erased. The mystery has fueled decades of speculation. Some suggest he transcended, using the power of his consciousness to step outside reality. To understand his disappearance, we must understand the world he was exploring. Jacobo Grinberg was not just another academic. He was a visionary, a man driven by an insatiable curiosity about the human mind. From a young age, he was fascinated by the brain, that 3-pound universe of neurons and electricity that gives rise to every thought, feeling, and perception we experience. He pursued his passion with relentless dedication, studying psychology and neuroscience in Mexico and later in New York. He founded a state-of-the-art laboratory dedicated to psychophysiology, the study of the relationship between mental phenomena and the body's physical processes. His early work was respected, grounded in the rigorous methods of traditional science. But Grinberg was searching for something more. He felt that conventional neuroscience, while brilliant at mapping the brain's physical structures, was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. It could explain the how of brain function, but not the why of conscious experience. Why do we feel love? What is the substance of a memory? Where does the sense of I come from? These questions pushed him beyond the mainstream. He began to see the brain not just as a biological computer that processes external data, but as an active creator, a powerful instrument that generates the very reality it perceives. This shift in perspective was the turning point in his career. He proposed that our perception of the world is not a direct reflection of an objective external reality. Instead, he theorized that our reality is an intricate neuro-algorithmic creation. Our brain, according to Grinberg, interprets a vast underlying field of information and constructs a coherent three-dimensional experience from it. This idea was radical. It suggested that the solid, predictable world we navigate every day is, in essence, a highly sophisticated, shared illusion generated by our collective consciousness. It was a concept that would become the cornerstone of his life's work. He called his grand unifying idea the syntergic theory. The word synergy combines synthesis and energy, representing the brain's ability to synthesize energy and information into a coherent perceptual field. This theory was his attempt to build a bridge between the world of science and the world of experience, between the objective measurements of the laboratory and the subjective richness of consciousness. It was a bold and ambitious undertaking, one that would lead him down a path that few scientists had ever dared to travel, a path that would ultimately lead to his enigmatic disappearance. Grinberg's defining idea is both simple and profoundly challenging. Our perception of reality is not fixed. Our consciousness plays a vital role in shaping it. He saw the universe as a dynamic field of information that our minds actively sculpt into tangible form. Grinberg proposed our brain acts like a lens, giving structure and meaning to this ocean of data. Change how your brain processes information, and you change your experienced reality. We are an integral part of the process through which the universe comes to know itself. Consciousness is the very mechanism by which reality is brought into being. This is the key that might unlock the mystery of Jacobo Grinberg himself. Jacobo Grinberg's journey into the labyrinth of the mind began in the quiet solitude of his childhood in Mexico City in 1946. He was a precocious child, deeply affected by the death of his mother, an event that catalyzed his lifelong quest to understand human consciousness. He felt an urgent need to understand the invisible thread that connected every thought. By 12, he dedicated his life to studying the human brain, the place where the mysteries of the universe and the self converged. At the National Autonomous University of Mexico to study psychology, he grew restless with the field's limitations. He wanted to build a bridge between the inner world of the mind and the outer world of physical processes, a visionary who saw connections that others missed. He wanted to know how the electrochemical firings of neurons could give rise to the vibrant, subjective experience of being alive. To further his quest, Jacobo Grinberg traveled from Mexico to New York City in the early 1970s. He enrolled at the New York Medical College, specializing in psychophysiology. Immersed in advanced brain research, he mastered electroencephalography, or EEG. New York's intellectually charged environment began a profound transformation in Grinberg's perspective. Exposed to diverse philosophies and Eastern spiritual traditions, a seed of doubt was planted about the mechanistic view of the brain. This period was his awakening. He realized that to truly understand the mind, he needed a synthesis of objective science and subjective insight. He was becoming a mind explorer. Upon returning to Mexico, Jacobo Grinberg was a changed man. He carried with him not just a doctorate and a wealth of scientific knowledge, but a radical new vision. He founded the Laboratory of Psychophysiology at the Universidad Anáhuac, and later a more advanced facility at UNAM. These were not to be ordinary research labs. They were to be the crucibles where his revolutionary ideas would be put to the test. He began a series of groundbreaking experiments designed to explore the very boundary between mind and matter, a boundary he was increasingly convinced was porous, if not entirely illusory. He was determined to find empirical evidence for the extraordinary connection he felt existed between consciousness and the physical world. One of his most famous and controversial series of experiments involved what he termed the transferred potential. The setup was elegantly simple, yet the implications were profound. Two subjects were asked to meditate together for a period of time, with the goal of establishing a deep, empathetic connection. After this, they were placed in separate, electromagnetically shielded rooms, known as Faraday cages. One subject would be shown a series of stimulating images or given gentle electrical shocks, designed to evoke a strong neural response. The other subject would sit in quiet isolation, completely unaware of what was happening in the other room. What Grinberg discovered was astonishing. He recorded the brain activity of both subjects using EEG machines. In a statistically significant number of cases, when the stimulated subject showed a distinct neural response, the isolated subject's brain would show a similar response at the exact same moment. This transferred potential occurred without any known physical or sensory link between the two individuals. It was as if their brains were still connected, communicating through a channel that defied classical physics. For Grinberg, this was the first piece of hard evidence that consciousness was not strictly confined to the individual brain. It was a non-local phenomenon. These findings were met with a mixture of excitement and deep skepticism from the scientific community. To many, his results seemed impossible, a violation of known physical laws. They were dismissed as artifacts, statistical flukes, or the result of flawed methodology. But Grinberg was undeterred. He meticulously repeated and refined his experiments, consistently producing the same enigmatic results. These were the seeds of his revolution. He was demonstrating with data that the separation we feel between ourselves and others might be an illusion created by our senses, and that on a deeper level of reality, our consciousnesses are intrinsically and inexplicably intertwined. Jacobo Grinberg sought to create a theory that could explain the very genesis of reality itself. This ambition gave birth to his masterwork, the syntergic theory. The core of this theory begins with a revolutionary reimagining of the brain's role. He proposed that the brain is not a receiver, but a generator, an active creator of the perceptual reality we inhabit. According to Grinberg, the brain doesn't just see the world, it generates it by interpreting a vast field of pure information. The world, as you know it, is a brain-made reality. This was a direct challenge to the foundations of both neuroscience and classical physics, fundamentally changing our place in the universe. If the brain generates reality, then the reality of each individual is, to some extent, unique. Our inner state, therefore, is the very paintbrush with which we paint it. He was proposing a psychophysics where the energetic properties of the brain had a direct causal effect on the structure of reality. If the brain is the projector, what is the film? What is the raw material from which our reality is constructed? Grinberg posited that the fundamental nature of the universe is information. Beneath appearances exists an all-encompassing pre-spatial, pre-temporal matrix of pure data. He called this the lattice, a vast holographic field containing all potential information. Think of the lattice as a sea of infinite potential, like an unplayed piece of music. It is pure potentiality, waiting for something to read it and to collapse its infinite possibilities. According to Grinberg, our brain is the instrument that reads the lattice. The reality we perceive is a highly filtered interpretation of it. What we perceive as empty space is teeming with an immeasurable density of information. Grinberg believed altering the brain's decoding process could access different information, leading to mystical experiences. Grinberg's CGIC theory proposes consciousness is a fundamental force, not a byproduct. It's the synthesizer, merging brain energy and the lattice's information into experience. Consciousness bridges our neuronal field and the informational matrix. It directs the brain, accessing data from the lattice. This elevates consciousness to the central protagonist of reality. Focused minds direct the brain to resonate with lattice patterns. This provides a framework for understanding phenomena like prayer and the placebo effect. We are co-creators, wielding a barely understood power. The quality of our consciousness determines the quality of our lives. Our experience is often filled with chaos. Grinberg addressed this with the concept of distortion in the perceptual field. He argued that the ego, our sense of a separate individual self, acts as the primary source of this distortion. The ego creates a kind of noise or static in our neuronal field, disrupting the brain's ability to interpret information from the lattice. The ego clouds the lens of perception. Grinberg believed that most of humanity lives within this distorted perceptual field, trapped in a feedback loop. This distortion, he claimed, is the root of human suffering and the illusion of separation. In our fundamental state, we are not separate, but expressions of a unified whole. The path to a higher state of being lies in transcending this distortion, quieting the ego, and purifying the perceptual field. At the core of Jacobo Grinberg's cosmology is the lattice, the ultimate source code of reality. He described it as a holographic field of pure information, a blueprint containing every possible event, object, and consciousness. The lattice isn't in any one place, it's the matrix that gives rise to space-time and everything we know. Our senses filter this infinite data, projecting a simplified version as our everyday world. Nothing is truly created or destroyed, everything shifts between potentiality in the lattice and manifestation in our reality. The laws of physics in this view are just the syntax of the lattice's code processed by our collective consciousness. The lattice is the hidden architecture connecting all things, a universal web of information. Grinberg's lattice theory redefines space and time as illusions, emergent properties of our perception. In the lattice, all points in space and all moments in time coexist, interconnected in a timeless whole. Distance and separation are illusions. Everything is adjacent within the lattice's informational field. This explains non-local phenomena. Minds attuned to the same pattern can connect instantly, regardless of distance. Time too is a construct. Past, present, and future are all patterns within the lattice, accessed sequentially by our consciousness. With the right awareness, one might transcend linear time, accessing information from the past or potential futures. For Grinberg, space and time are flexible, parameters of perception, not prison bars. Grinberg expanded the observer effect to the entire cosmos. Our consciousness collapses the lattice's infinite possibilities into reality. We're not passive, we actively create the world we experience, moment by moment. Our collective consciousness shapes consensus reality by collapsing similar patterns from the lattice. Reality is malleable, a shift in observation can alter what emerges from the lattice. Grinberg believed shamans or chamanes mastered this process, intentionally interacting with the lattice to perform what seem like miracles. They don't break physical laws, they operate from a deeper level where those laws are written. These individuals are cosmic artists, choosing which reality to bring forth. The observer effect in Grinberg's model is the ultimate creative force. Grinberg's search for proof led him to Pachita, a legendary Mexican healer. Pachita, a curandera, was said to perform psychic surgeries, removing diseased organs and manifesting healthy ones, painlessly and without infection. Skeptical but curious, Grinberg observed her work firsthand, documenting her procedures with scientific rigor. He saw her materialize organs, make incisions that healed instantly, and cure patients abandoned by conventional medicine. For Grinberg, this wasn't magic, it was consciousness interfacing directly with the lattice. Pachita's mind, unified with the lattice, could rearrange the informational patterns of matter at will. Grinberg spent years studying her, becoming part of her inner circle. Her abilities confirmed his theories and pushed them further. He witnessed a living demonstration of consciousness shaping reality. Watching Pachita, Grinberg saw his theories come alive. Her consciousness operated at a level where the boundary between mind and matter dissolved. She didn't see the world as solid objects, but as a unified field of information. Her intention interacted directly with the lattice, demanifesting diseased organs and remanifesting healthy ones. The knife was just a focus for her will. The real surgery happened at the informational level. Grinberg documented cases of organs materializing to match patients perfectly, defying scientific explanation. The experience transformed him. He realized shamanic traditions held practical knowledge of reality's deeper layers. Pachita proved that shaping reality was a human faculty, not just a theory. For Grinberg, this was ultimate validation. The universe could be understood through direct, conscious experience. Grinberg's time with Pachita was a critical convergence, merging his scientific and mystical sides. Pachita offered evidence that his scientific model described the cosmos. His synturgic theory potentially explained Pachita's impossible feats. It was a symbiotic relationship between modern physics and ancient shamanism. Grinberg saw Pachita as the pinnacle of human potential, abilities latent within everyone. She embodied what human consciousness can achieve when freed from ego and unified with the lattice. This drove Grinberg to build a bridge between science and knowing, believing it could revolutionize human evolution. He sought to engineer consciousness expansion, seeing inner space as science's next frontier. This conviction would set the stage for his reality manipulation techniques and eventual disappearance. After witnessing Pachita's abilities, Jacobo Grinberg questioned how consciousness could reshape reality. He theorized that focused intention and heightened emotion act like a laser beam, targeting the lattice. Emotion generates a vibratory field that imprints the intention, collapsing potentiality into reality. This is the engine of creation, a scientific framework for ancient wisdom. Feel what you want as if it were already real. Our thoughts and feelings imprint upon the lattice, reflecting back as our life circumstances. Master your inner state to become a conscious creator. How could an ordinary person achieve the level of focus demonstrated by a master shaman? Grinberg developed a practical technique to train the mind. He called it self-annihilation meditation. The name sounds stark, but its purpose was quite precise: to annihilate the ego. The practice involved sensory withdrawal and deep introspection. The meditator would focus on their senses, letting go of attachment to them. The goal was to dismantle the building blocks of the ego's reality. The ultimate aim was to achieve pure, contentless awareness. Grinberg believed this meditation was the key to turn an ordinary human into a conscious creator. With the theoretical model of intention and a practical method for achieving a coherent state, Jacobo Grinberg felt he was on the verge of a monumental breakthrough. He believed he was close to creating a replicable scientific process for engineering what the world would call miracles. He envisioned a future where this knowledge could be taught and applied, revolutionizing every aspect of human life, from medicine to personal development. It was a vision of humanity awakening to its own innate creative power, consciously and deliberately shaping a better reality from the infinite potential contained within the lattice. This became the ultimate focus of his work. He began to design experiments that went even further than his transferred potential studies. He wanted to test the direct influence of focused consciousness on physical systems. Could a group of meditating individuals influence the output of a random number generator? Could a trained mind affect the growth rate of plants, or the crystallization of water? These were the kinds of questions he was exploring in the final years before his disappearance. He was attempting to build the final bridge between the subjective world of consciousness and the objective, measurable world of science. He was trying to create the instruction manual for reality creation. This research was the culmination of his entire life's journey. It brought together his expertise in neuroscience, his revolutionary synturgic theory, and the profound lessons he learned from the shaman Pachita. He was moving from theory to application, from understanding reality to actively participating in its design. This was a path fraught with unimaginable implications. If he succeeded, he would be unlocking a power of incredible magnitude, a power that could heal the sick and transform the world, but also a power that, in the wrong hands, could be profoundly dangerous. This may have been a concern for him, and perhaps for others who were watching his work. It is in the context of this final, audacious phase of his research that his disappearance becomes all the more mysterious. Was he on the verge of a public demonstration? Had he finally succeeded in creating a reliable method for reality manipulation? Or did he, in his own deep meditative practice, achieve such a profound connection with the lattice that he simply stepped through the veil? Perhaps he didn't just learn how to shape reality, but how to navigate it in ways we cannot comprehend, choosing to explore a different level of existence altogether. The final act of his life's work remains an unanswered, tantalizing question. On December 8, 1994, Jacobo Grinberg disappeared, leaving behind profound questions. His disappearance is the final riddle in a life dedicated to understanding consciousness. We may never know what happened, but we are left with the echo of his mind challenging and inspiring us. Grinberg's legacy lies in his paradigm-shifting ideas, bridging neuroscience and shamanism. He gave us a new language for the mind-matter connection, suggesting our inner world creates the outer. His work confronts us with the possibility that we are more powerful than we imagine. We are co-creators, shaping our lives from infinite potential. The key to changing the world lies in transforming our own consciousness. Jacobo Grinberg became a living question mark, inviting us to explore the mystery of reality. His life's work remains a beacon for those who explore the profound mystery of who we are. We return to the question, what is reality? Jacobo Grinberg's life suggests the universe isn't what it seems. Consciousness illuminates all existence, collapsing potential into the present. We are the observers who create the observed. The most advanced technology is within us, a disciplined, focused mind. Did Grinberg achieve self-annihilation? The final frontier is within our own consciousness. Grinberg's mystery reflects our deepest questions. Now that you've heard his story, what reality will you create?